everyone, welcome back to Katarina's Garage. My name is Katarina Lloyd, and I apologize for the sound in the background. They're unloading some stuff at the business back there, so. But anyways, this is my 81 Ford Mustang. Even though, yes, it looks like a Capri, that's because I'm doing a full Capri swap on it. You know, basically just a coupe Fox body Mustang with Capri parts mill. But that's not what this video is about. Although, kind of, but not really. So, this video is talking about how this car here, which is not a fast car, it might look like it is, but trust me, this thing is slower than your Honda Civic, at least in a straight line, and probably around a track with an experienced driver. But beyond that though, this car, I've done a ton of modifications to this car, and I've improved it drastically from stock. And it's amazing though of what I've been able to do with this thing with a limited budget, and also being able to road race it and actually beat up on cars that should be a lot faster than me. So as an example, this car here, like we'll go over some of the stuff, but like what I've done to this car, like I'll show everything I've done to this car. But before I do that, a couple weeks ago, like this was start of September, right? So like literally just a couple weeks ago, I was at Strawberry Creek Raceway and we were running a short course there. Not the full course, just a short course. It's actually been modified from the previous year. So I was hoping that it was going to be the same, but actually I'm happy that it changed because it was much more technical and much more fun for me. And I was able to use some of my disadvantages to be some of my advantages with the car. So, anyways, yes, this car did on the track a 1 minute 12 second time, which in context doesn't sound like you don't know, like is that fast, is that slow? Well, let me tell you. So to my knowledge, now there was two vehicles that were faster than me at that track day. One was a Lotus 7, right? That's a full-on race car for the street. And the guy driving it is an absolute monster. Now, he didn't say he can actually potentially go faster than that, but he was trying to be consistent, right? Which is fair enough. He did a 1 minute 5 second time. He claims he can do about 1 minute time. I believe him. He's a really good driver. The other one, which I was not able to talk to them, but I talked to the people that was beside them, and they were kind of telling me about the vehicle, was a 1952, I believe, Jaguar C-Type, which again, full-blown race car. It was designed for endurance racing back in the 50s. That thing did, I believe it was a 1 minute and 7 second time. So, having full-blown race cars, and I'm only, what, 5 seconds slower and 7 seconds slower? That's not bad, right? Than them with this Fox body. Let me go over the car. Like I'll pop the hood and I'll show you guys kind of what I've done. But actually, before I pop the hood, let me show you around the car, show you what I've done underneath, show you what I've done. Well, you can see some of it obviously, like the aerodynamics and stuff. But yeah, let me get you off the stand here, and I will show you what all I've done to this thing. So, this is a 1981 Ford Mustang. And as you can tell, well, she's got a Capri front clip on it, which, with this air dam, actually helps out with aerodynamics immensely, even though it's not perfect. Case in point, there's a bit of a gap here. And if we look over here, there is a giant gap over here. And the only reason why I put there's this screw in it, because this was way too floppy. So I didn't want to take the chance that it might actually break off, because it is fiberglass after all. You know, having this hood scoop on it might actually increase the aerodynamics. I don't know for sure, because air is going to come up and into the engine bay. Well, I mean, it has nowhere to go because I don't have, you know, vents cut, but I do actually want to do that. But when the air comes up and is coming up over here, it gets this extra lift, and that should help it, depending on speeds, help it go over to the roof, and then back here to my whale tail, hitting it directly here, making it so this thing handles a lot better. Now, I cannot really confirm that scoop might not be big enough to do that, and the speeds I was going, it may have not been as effective in doing that. I don't know. That's just my rough theory on it, right? But of course, I have the Celine whale tail back here as well. That's been on the car since like 2020. It's one of the, actually, that is the very first mod I did to the car, was that. You know, it's got obviously the dual exhaust, as you can see, and that's actually a true dual exhaust. Fully custom by Tim's Muffler at Leduc. So shout them out, as always. They are amazing with their work. You can see I'm using these Yokohama AV160i tires. Now, and you can see the tread on them. They're actually kind of a racy tire to a certain degree. I know, because when I'm in rainstorms, these tires suck. But the thing is, up front though, I've only got these Westlakes, and you can tell my alignment's bad because, you know, it's been clipping here, right? So getting the alignment fixed tomorrow. Just haven't had money until now, so to be able to fix that. But the thing is, these tires nowhere near as good as those Yokohamas back there. So I was dealing with a lot of understeer on the front end. However, I was using the understeer to my advantage. I was intentionally going a little too fast into corners to try and bleed off speed with the understeer. And like, experienced drivers will actually do that with their front wheel drives, because normally front wheel drive vehicles have a ton of understeer because it's fighting every single force that it can. When you're accelerating, as an example, there's less weight on the front end because of weight transfer to the back. And as a result, you don't get as much traction up front, and you start understeering a lot more with that. And so they will actually use it to their advantage at times to be able to bleed off speed. If we look inside, now, when I was at the track, this interior was not fully stripped, but stripped. So the center console was out of it, the cup holders were out, the passenger seat, carpet, and rear seat was all out. I didn't have anything loose in the trunk or in the vehicle, anything like that. And that is just free weight savings, to be honest. And the thing is, it saved about 100 pounds, give or take, because the carpet's about 40 pounds. That seat is like 35-ish, 39-ish pounds. The back seat's only about 20, 25, right? So I'm right in that 100-pound range, give or take. If we take a look underneath the hood, but actually before we do that, one of the other things I did, and people said this was the dumbest thing I could have done, and that it would not help me whatsoever in what I was doing. But I'm going to explain why those comments were completely wrong. So if we take a look underneath the car here, you'll see these subframe connectors that I had welded in. That was last year. The thing is, because people think that it's just going to affect how much horsepower your vehicle has, and that's how they work, but that's not the case. That is stiffening up the chassis, both front to rear, which will actually help with handling and actually a bit of traction as well. I was able to launch at a harder RPM off the line to get a little better acceleration, but I was actually intentionally trying to spin the back tire a bit off the line because I was trying to warm up the tire just a little bit. I don't know if that really worked out in my favor or not, but, you know, it seemed to have. But anyways, let's take a look under the hood. So you might expect a V8 or like a Turbo 4 or something like that, but nope. This is a 200 inline 6 that at peak made 100 wheel horsepower and 220 foot-pounds of torque. So not really a ton of power, but this thing is incredibly light. When it was bone stock, it was only 2,680 pounds. No idea if it's heavier or lighter than stock, because especially with like the strut brace that I added earlier this year, I added the header, which is actually going to be lighter than the cast iron manifold, that was in it. But then something else that I didn't show before is at the back here. I added 2 things from last year. Well, actually, correction. One of them I had last year, the other one I didn't. Back here. So as you can see, that is an 8.8 rear end with 355s limited slip. I added that a few years ago, to be honest. It was like 4 years ago that I've had this rear end in the car. But I have a rear sway bar in the car, which I didn't have last year. And that's off of just a stock GT sway bar, so it works pretty well. It's not like amazing, and granted, I would absolutely love to have, you know, a much better suspension setup, because I'm stock suspension right now. You know, I have like the coil springs in the back are just stock replacements. I have not replaced the coil springs up front. I've done shocks all the way around, but that was like 5 years ago that I did the shocks, or maybe even 6. So yeah, and then just Monroe, nothing fancy, right? They do the trick though. You know, with the awesome Little and Global 2¼ inch aluminum rad. Shout out my friend Natalie, who actually bought that for me for my birthday after I made a mistake and kind of wrecked the last one. Although this one I actually had to fix it earlier this year, just before my track day, because it sprung a leak and I had to take everything out, and it was no big deal. But I added this fan shroud though shortly after my track day last year, and boy does it make a big difference in the cooling of this thing, because it does not have an issue now of heat. That is not a problem anymore. Something else that also helped the car a little bit, I can't say it helped out a ton, but I added, if you look right here, an oil catch can. So it's still connected, you know, PCV and then to vacuum, right? But it catches a lot of that junk that would normally just go back into your engine, and you don't want it to do that. It frees up just a little bit of power, not a ton in an NA setup especially, but anytime you can make it so trash doesn't get into your motor, that's a good thing. Let's see. As well, actually inside, because you may have noticed that it is a manual. Yes, this car was born with a C4 automatic, but it was 3, almost 4 years ago now that me and my buddy swapped in this T5 manual. And this T5 is out of a 1983 Mustang, so it's got a 295 first with 0.73 overdrive, right? It works for what I have here. I do have plans of adding a turbo and stuff like that, and better aerodynamics. I am gonna put headlight covers on this thing, because it's not gonna make a big difference, but it'll look cooler and it'll match the front end a little better, and like I said, it'll affect it a little bit. I can't imagine it doing a ton, but anytime you can make it so it's smoother, because like here's the thing, when air is coming in here, right, it doesn't really have proper places to go. Some of it will go in underneath the lights here and go through there as an example, or come through here and into the engine bay, sure. But then it's not escaping anywhere, right? So if you get headlight covers, which I had on my old front end, but they don't actually fit the Capri front end, 85, 86 Mustang, the headlight openings are a lot bigger than the Capris and early Mustang front ends. So I don't know what year they changed the sizing though, so you'd have to look that one up on your own. But this works out really well, and I'm so happy with the car right now. Even though she is misfiring, still is. I swapped out the distributor and it's still misfiring from that. So I'm thinking, I'm just thinking with that, if it might actually be the plugs, and in particular the gap, because I thought I checked the gaps and they seem to be okay, but maybe they're too big and that's what's causing that. So I do want to pull the plugs back out of this and do that. But other than that, you know, this car has been so amazing and I am very, very happy with it. It just sucks though, because I had an HEI in here, but I had to go back to the stock ignition, which meant going to a worse coil than what was in that HEI because of that, which sucks, but it is what it is. You know, there's not much you can do about it. And, you know, like I said, it is what it is. Now, some of the other things with it, like as an example, even having like this Optima battery in it, these batteries hold their charge a lot better, and when you have a little bit of extra amperage, it'll actually give you a little bit of extra horsepower. Not a ton, but again, it's little things like that that can make all the difference in the world with your setups. And you might think, well, how is it? You just said it's very insignificant. But when you have, you know, half a horsepower here, 2 horsepower here, 5 horsepower there, you know, it adds up. And eventually, it'll make it so your car is more efficient with what it does. And honestly, like, I am so happy with the car. I'm wanting to do more aerodynamic touches. Like, as an example, I want to kind of keep this sort of rear bumper, but modify it in a way to where it kind of wraps around, like sort of like the GT ones later on, but I don't want that giant Mustang script, and I want it, you know, this sort of bumper design. Because I have, I believe, an LX rear bumper in my shed that I could throw on here. You know, but it says Mustang in the middle. It just looks wrong on a 4i, in my opinion. But anyways, so they could wrap down like that. And then what I'd want to do is actually add, they're not canards, because canards go out there. What are those called? I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head. But, you know, they go down like this, and they help dissipate air that's coming from underneath the car out the back, resulting in just a little better aerodynamics. Just little things like that, you know, where it doesn't seem like much, but every little thing you do, and especially when you're road racing, can do a lot in the end. So, I don't know. If this made sense to you, maybe it didn't, but honestly, I love this car, and I look forward to doing more modifications to it. And like future modifications, like I said, it's gonna include a turbo, which I have. I got sent it from Max Peating Rods. That was like almost 2 years ago now. But I can't afford to install it. I need the proper ignition that'll, you know, tie it all together so that it'll actually, you know, back the timing off when I need it to, and then advance it when it's not under, you know, boost. And then I'll need the proper fuel system. Now, plus, I also need the custom header to be built too. So there's that. I would also need to figure out how I'm going to do the carburetor on it, because I've got a Holley 500 CFM 2 barrel that I could throw on this. It currently has a Motorcraft 2100 that's 267 CFM. But when I would be under boost, I'd want that 500 just because. And now, in hindsight, it might not be the best idea, and I might have to go to the smaller one, but you never know, right? So that's kind of my setup here. And even like with the carburetor, it's through an adapter. So it's still going through that one barrel awfulness of this intake that does not flow worth a damn, because they cast these into the head and it's just awful for flow. And that's why actually, so a friend of mine, Christopher, he actually has a Granada with a 65 296, and unfortunately he cracked the block. But the head's still in good shape, and apparently it shaved 50 thou. So that would be a kind of upgrade that I'd want to do to this. And also, I'm noticing this. Is this gasoline? No, that's kind of oily. That's not gasoline. Okay. Well, I don't know exactly where that's coming from, because it's not leaking anywhere. So I've fought so many oil leaks on this car for a very long time. But actually, I do see a little bit down here, a little tiny bit. So maybe it is leaking a tiny bit of oil again. Ugh, pain. But yeah, so anyways, that's kind of the idea, kind of the setup that I have right now. You know, next setups will probably be try to add a little bit more power. Like I said, if I can get that head off of him, you know, that could work well. And then I'd get the intake modified to fit the 2-barrel directly so that it doesn't have to sit sideways. It could actually sit the correct orientation around so that the Holley carb would actually work better for my setup, because Holleys don't like being sideways. At least the 2-barrels don't. You need to do like some modifications to the carburetor so that it can actually sit sideways, because year one of running around the track, I had a Holley carb on here and it was junk. I hated it. So, you know, and that wasn't the 500 CFM. That was like I think a 350, I think. I want to say. I could be wrong on that. But anyways, yeah, so this is kind of my setup for now. And obviously, like, my heater core is disconnected and whatever else, but that's kind of just how it goes that way. Because unfortunately, when I had the head off to get the header on, I had like broken bolts that just could not come out. So I brought it to my buddy Roy Marco up in Edmonton, and he extracted the bolt that was still stuck in there that we couldn't get out. So when I was leaning over here, I probably rested the head on here, and it ripped the fitting right out. So, which sucks. So I've ordered a new heater core. So I'll go pick that up on Friday, and then go from there. So shout out to the Mustang shop in Calgary. This is gonna be my first time I'll ever be in there, so that'd be kind of cool. I'm going down to Lethbridge to deliver some parts to a guy. So yeah, part of, you know, how I make things work out here. But beyond that, that's kind of where we're at. And now, like I mentioned before, I would love to do a full coilover setup on this car, to have big, thick sway bars all the way around, so that this thing has the best chance of handling. And obviously, I want to get better tires. Like, those Yokohamas are actually pretty good, but I don't have matching for the front or anything that's even comparable. Like I said, I have those Westlegs. I've got some BFGs that are dry rotted really bad, so, and I just decided, you know what, those are not going to work out so well on this. So I just said, screw it, and went with the Westlegs, and it worked out pretty well. Now, if I was on better tires, okay, I generally think I could have picked up another 3 or 4 seconds around the track, because even though I said that I was using the understeer to my advantage, which yes, but also no, it was also a hindrance at the same time. I was doing it to bleed off speed, while if I didn't have to do that, I could have taken those corners at another 5 or maybe 10 miles an hour and pick up that few extra seconds on the back end. So yeah, but it's been fun, honestly, and it's been great making the content for all of you on this car. And what's interesting is every once in a while, because of what I've done with this car, and I've shown how much fun I'm having with it, I've actually had inquiries of people searching for these. Not too many, but I get an email every once in a blue moon about people looking for one of these and what should they look out for. So it's pretty cool that I can kind of provide not a ton of popularity to these straight 6 box bodies, because again, they only existed from 79.5 to 82, excluding in the Fairmont and Zephyr, where they went to 83, because they didn't put the 3.8 V6s in those. They just kept the inline 6 millimeter. But yeah, honestly, I'm so happy with the build so far, and there's a lot more that I want to do to this, so stay tuned for that. And well, hey, if you have some good suspension that would work on this, let me know. I don't have a lot of money or anything, as you guys are probably aware, unless you're new to the channel. Then, well, welcome. You're talking to a broke bitch here. But anytime that I can get some parts, I do, right? It can be a little tough, though, to afford everything. It takes time, right? This all takes time. And hopefully, with the dyno business and me taking that over, hopefully I'll have a little bit of extra disposable income, and I can spend more of it into the car and into the truck that you saw in the background there. That's my 76 F250. So, yeah. Anyways, so hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, your family, your cat, your dog, your fish, your snack, you know, the and as well, go down to the description below. There are 2 links down there. One is for Oxido, and if you use my code KAT15, all in caps, you'll receive 15% off your order. I'm actually using their LEDs on my low beams right now, and they're honestly one of the best companies out there for their LEDs. The other one is Flash Arc Racing, which oddly enough actually do LEDs as well, but that's not what they're known for. Flash Arc is more known for their headers as an example, and it's amazing their selection, because obviously they have these straight 6 headers on there. They have cold air intakes, you know, which my dad's truck is actually running one of their cold air intakes right now. They have other automotive accessories as well. Like there's a ton of stuff, so go check them out. They've even got like, I believe they got oil catch can kits and overflow like kits for your car and whatever else for like radiator and stuff. So, anyways, yeah, use my code on there as well. Same code as Oxido. It's all in the description below, so you'll see it. KAT15, all in caps, for 50% off your Flash Arc order as well. So anyways, take care of yourselves. I appreciate you all. Stay safe, have fun, and work on that project car. You know, I want to hear about it. What are you working on? Leave it down in the comments below. Anyways, take care. Bye.